From the day you were born, you were taught to search for someone who would complete you, someone who would stay forever, someone who would make you feel enough. Yet no one ever told you that depending on another human being for emotional stability is the fastest way to lose your inner peace. The Buddha revealed that suffering begins the moment you believe you cannot survive alone, and freedom begins the moment you realize you were always whole. What if your greatest strength is not in who stands beside you, but in who you become when no one is there? Today you will learn why being happy alone is your true power, and why learning to live without anyone transforms fear into unshakable inner strength. 1. You were born alone, and you will leave alone. The Buddha often reminded his followers that everything in life is impermanent. People change, relationships evolve, and situations never stay the same forever. When you were born, you entered this world through your own breath and your own body. Even though others were around you, your life journey began within you. And one day, when your time here ends, you will leave in the same way. No one can take that final step for you. This truth is not meant to make you fearful or emotionally distant. It is meant to make you strong and clear. When you understand that your path is ultimately yours alone, you stop placing your emotional stability entirely in other people's hands. You begin to see that while others may walk beside you, they cannot carry you through every season of life. Some people will stay for years, some only for a short time, and some will leave unexpectedly. This is not always betrayal. It is the natural flow of change. Much of your suffering comes from expecting temporary things to be permanent. You hold tightly to people because you fear losing them. You compromise your peace because you are afraid of being alone. But when you accept that change is part of life, your fear of abandonment slowly weakens. You stop begging people to stay and start trusting yourself to continue forward, no matter who remains beside you. When you build your strength from within, instead of depending on what is outside, you become emotionally stable. You appreciate people without clinging to them. You love without losing yourself. And you stand firm in the understanding that your true security does not come from who stays, but from the strength you cultivate inside your own mind. 2. Attachment is the root of emotional weakness. The Buddha taught that attachment is one of the main causes of suffering. This does not mean you should not love people or build connections. It means you should not cling to them as if your survival depends on them. There is a big difference between loving someone and needing someone to feel okay. When you become emotionally attached in an unhealthy way, your peace starts depending on another person's behavior. If they give you attention, you feel happy. If they pull away, you feel anxious. If they leave, you feel broken. This kind of attachment creates emotional instability. Attachment says, "I cannot be happy without you." Love says, "I appreciate you, but I am still whole on my own." When you rely on someone else to regulate your emotions, you give them power over your inner world. You may not even realize it, but your mood, your confidence, and your sense of security become controlled by external actions. That is where weakness begins. When you slowly reduce attachment and build inner independence, you feel a shift. You stop overreacting to small changes. You stop panicking when someone becomes distant. You stop losing yourself just to keep someone close. Instead, you learn to enjoy people without being afraid of their absence. This creates emotional balance. You can care deeply, but you remain steady. Detachment in Buddhism is not about becoming cold or uncaring. It is about loving from strength instead of fear. When you are not attached in a desperate way, you become calm, confident, and self-respecting. And that calm confidence is true emotional power. 3. Loneliness is a teacher, not an enemy. Most people are afraid of loneliness, but if they are honest with themselves, what they are truly afraid of is silence. The moment the noise stops, the distractions disappear, and there is no one around to entertain or validate them. They are left alone with their own thoughts. For many, this feels uncomfortable and even frightening. That is why people constantly seek company, scroll endlessly on their phones, jump from one conversation to another, or stay in relationships that no longer bring peace. They are not always chasing love. They are running away from themselves. The Buddha taught that awareness is the beginning of wisdom, and loneliness creates the perfect space for awareness. When you sit alone without distraction, you begin to notice your thoughts more clearly. You become aware of your fears, your insecurities, your unresolved pain, and even your hidden desires. At first, this awareness can feel overwhelming because you are finally seeing parts of yourself that you have been avoiding. But this is not punishment, it is growth. Loneliness exposes what needs healing. It shows you where you depend too much on others. It reveals where you lack self-acceptance. Instead of seeing loneliness as rejection, you can start seeing it as training. It teaches you how to be comfortable in your own presence. It teaches you how to calm your own mind instead of relying on someone else to distract you. It teaches you patience, self-reflection, and emotional control. When you learn to sit quietly with yourself, you begin to build a strong inner relationship. You start understanding your patterns, your reactions, and your emotional triggers. This understanding gives you power because once you are aware, you can change. Over time, something beautiful happens. The silence that once felt heavy begins to feel peaceful. The emptiness that once felt painful begins to feel spacious. You start enjoying your own company. You can spend time alone without feeling unwanted or incomplete. You discover that being alone does not mean being unloved. It means being independent. When loneliness becomes your teacher, you stop fearing it. You no longer rush to fill every empty moment. You allow yourself to breathe, reflect, and grow. In that quiet space, your mind becomes clearer, your emotions become steadier, and your sense of self becomes stronger. And when you can be alone without feeling lost, you have reached a level of emotional maturity that many people spend their entire lives trying to find. 4. Self-sufficiency creates unbreakable confidence. There is a powerful transformation that happens when you become emotionally self-sufficient. Most people believe confidence comes from success, relationships, status, or the approval of others. But that kind of confidence is fragile because it depends on things that can change at any moment. True confidence is born when you realize that you can stand on your own, emotionally and mentally, without collapsing when someone leaves or when circumstances shift. This kind of strength is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted within you. When you are self-sufficient, you do not panic during emotional storms. If you feel sadness, you know how to sit with it and understand it instead of running away from it. If you feel anxiety, you know how to calm your breath and observe your thoughts without letting them control you. If someone disappoints you, you feel the pain but you do not lose your sense of self. This ability to regulate your own emotions creates a deep inner trust. You begin to trust that no matter what happens outside, you will not abandon yourself. The Buddha emphasized self-reliance by teaching that the disciplined mind becomes your greatest refuge. He did not say that others will always save you. He taught that your awareness, your understanding, and your inner balance are your true protection. When you train your mind to observe rather than react, to accept rather than resist, you become emotionally stable. You stop expecting others to constantly comfort you, motivate you, or fix your problems. You become your own source of reassurance. Self-sufficiency also changes how you approach relationships. You no longer enter connections out of desperation or fear of being alone. You enter them from a place of strength. You give love because you want to, not because you need something in return. You do not tolerate disrespect just to avoid loneliness, because you already know how to stand comfortably by yourself. This makes your boundaries stronger and your standards clearer. Over time, this inner independence creates unbreakable confidence. You wake up knowing that your happiness is not dependent on someone texting you, praising you, or staying with you. You understand that your peace comes from how you manage your own mind. Even when life becomes difficult, you do not feel helpless because you know you have the tools within yourself to endure and grow. Self-sufficiency does not mean isolating yourself from the world. It means knowing that your foundation is internal. It means understanding that while others may walk beside you, your strength does not collapse if they step away. This kind of confidence cannot be easily shaken because it is built on self-awareness, discipline, and emotional responsibility. And when you reach this level of independence, you realize that being alone is not weakness. It is proof that you are strong enough to carry your own peace wherever you go. 5. When you stop needing, you start choosing. There is a profound shift that happens in your life when you move from needing people to choosing them. As long as you need someone to feel complete, your actions are controlled by fear. You fear being abandoned, so you tolerate behavior that hurts you. You fear being alone, so you lower your standards. You fear rejection, so you silence your true thoughts and adjust yourself to please others. In this state, you are not living freely. You are negotiating your peace in exchange for temporary security. Needing someone creates imbalance. It places the other person in a position of power over your emotions. Without realizing it, you begin to revolve around their attention, their approval, and their presence. Your mood depends on how they treat you. Your confidence rises and falls based on how much validation they give. This is not love. This is dependence disguised as connection. And dependence always brings anxiety, because deep down you know that what you rely on can disappear. When you learn to live without anyone, you begin to break this pattern. You realize that you are capable of handling your own emotions. You can sit with your sadness without demanding someone else to fix it. You can enjoy your own company without feeling incomplete. You can experience silence without panic. As your inner stability grows, something powerful happens. You stop approaching relationships from a place of lack. Instead of thinking, "I need this person to be happy," you begin thinking, "I choose this person because they add value to my life." This change may seem small, but it transforms everything. When you choose rather than need, you become calm. You do not chase desperately. You do not beg for attention. You do not compromise your dignity to keep someone close. If someone respects you, you stay. If someone disrespects you, you walk away with clarity instead of fear. Your decisions are no longer driven by loneliness, but by self-respect. Choosing also brings equality into your relationships. You meet others as a whole individual, not as someone looking to be completed. You give love freely, not as a transaction. You appreciate their presence, but you are not terrified of their absence. This balance creates healthier, more mature connections because there is no emotional pressure or hidden desperation. When you stop needing, you reclaim your power. You understand that your happiness is self-generated and relationships become an addition, not a requirement. You begin to see people clearly without the distortion of fear. You are no longer blinded by the thought of losing them, so you can evaluate whether they truly align with your values and peace. This is the strength of being happy alone. It allows you to choose wisely. It allows you to stay only where there is respect and mutual understanding. And it gives you the courage to walk away from what no longer serves your growth. When you stop needing, you stop settling. And when you stop settling, your life becomes guided by clarity, dignity, and inner freedom. 6. Emotional independence protects your peace. Your peace is one of the most valuable things you possess, yet many people give it away without realizing it. A single harsh comment can ruin their entire day. A delayed reply can create hours of anxiety. A disagreement can turn into emotional chaos. This happens because their inner state is tied to external events. When your emotions are controlled by what others say, do, or think about you, you live in constant instability. Emotional independence is the shield that protects you from this instability. The Buddha taught that the mind is the source of both suffering and freedom. If your mind reacts blindly to every situation, you will always feel disturbed. But if your mind is trained to observe calmly instead of reacting impulsively, you gain control over your inner world. Emotional independence begins when you realize that you are responsible for your reactions. You cannot control what people say, but you can control how deeply you allow it to affect you. You cannot control who leaves, but you can control whether their departure destroys your self-worth. When you depend emotionally on others, every small shift feels like a threat. If someone becomes distant, you assume the worst. If someone criticizes you, you feel attacked at your core. If someone walks away, you question your value. But when you build emotional independence, you start seeing things differently. You understand that other people's behavior often reflects their own state of mind, not your worth. You stop personalizing everything. You stop absorbing every negative energy around you. Emotional independence does not mean you stop feeling emotions. It means you feel them without losing yourself in them. You can experience disappointment without collapsing. You can experience sadness without feeling hopeless. You can experience conflict without becoming consumed by anger. There is a calm center within you that remains steady even when situations are uncomfortable. This calm center is built through awareness, patience, and self-reflection. As you strengthen this independence, you notice a powerful change. You no longer seek constant reassurance. You do not need someone to validate every decision you make. You trust your own judgment. You make choices based on clarity rather than emotional pressure. And because your peace is not easily shaken, you move through life with quiet confidence. Emotional independence also improves your relationships. When you are not overly sensitive or reactive, conflicts become easier to handle. You listen more calmly. You respond more thoughtfully. You do not create unnecessary drama because your ego is not constantly seeking protection. This stability makes you stronger and more attractive as a person because others feel safe around someone who is emotionally balanced. In a world where many people are easily triggered, easily offended, and easily disturbed, the person who can remain centered stands out. That person has mastered something rare. They have learned that their peace is their responsibility. They protect it carefully. They do not hand it to anyone who comes into their life. When you become emotionally independent, you realize that no one has the power to control your inner state unless you give them that power. You become selective about what you allow into your mind. You stop reacting to everything. And in that space of calm awareness, you discover a deep and stable peace that cannot be easily broken. That is true protection. That is true strength. 7. True freedom begins when you realize you are enough. The deepest transformation begins the moment you truly understand that you are enough exactly as you are. Most of your life, you may have been chasing a feeling of completion. You believed that once someone loved you deeply, once someone stayed forever, or once someone approved of you completely, then you would finally feel secure and whole. But the Buddha taught that this endless search outside of yourself is the very source of suffering. As long as you believe that something external must complete you, you will always feel incomplete. From a young age, you were conditioned to seek validation. You were praised when you pleased others, and criticized when you disappointed them. Slowly, your sense of worth became connected to other people's opinions. You began measuring your value by how much attention you received, how needed you felt, or how much someone desired your presence. This created a hidden dependency. You were not just seeking connection, you were seeking proof that you mattered. But the truth is that your existence itself is proof of your worth. You do not need constant reassurance to justify your value. You do not need someone's presence to confirm that you are important. When you sit quietly and observe your breath, when you become aware of your thoughts without judgment, you begin to see that there is a stable awareness within you that does not depend on anyone. This awareness is calm, steady, and complete. It does not feel empty when alone. It does not panic in silence. It simply exists. When you realize you are enough, your entire relationship with the world changes. You stop chasing people to fill emotional gaps. You stop trying to impress others to gain approval. You stop shrinking yourself just to keep someone comfortable. Instead, you stand firmly in who you are. You understand your strengths and accept your imperfections without feeling ashamed. You do not need to prove yourself constantly because your value is no longer up for negotiation. This realization creates true freedom. You are free from the fear of being abandoned because you no longer see abandonment as the end of your worth. You are free from emotional manipulation because you are not desperate for validation. You are free from the anxiety of constantly pleasing others because your peace does not depend on their approval. When someone walks away, you may feel sadness, but you do not feel destroyed. When someone misunderstands you, you remain steady because your identity is not built on their perception. Being enough does not mean you stop growing. It means you grow from a place of self-respect rather than self-rejection. You improve yourself not because you feel broken, but because you value yourself. You build better habits not to impress others, but to strengthen your own mind. You seek healthy relationships not because you are afraid of loneliness, but because you genuinely wish to share your life with others from a place of wholeness. When you reach this level of understanding, being alone no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like stability. It feels like strength. You wake up each day knowing that even if no one stands beside you, you still have yourself. And that realization removes a deep layer of fear from your life. True freedom begins when you stop searching outside for what must be realized within. When you understand that you are already complete, you stop clinging, stop chasing, and stop begging. You move through life with quiet dignity. You love without losing yourself. You connect without becoming dependent. And you walk your path with the calm confidence of someone who knows that their worth is not fragile, not temporary, and not controlled by anyone else. That is true power. That is true freedom. And that is the strength of being happy alone. 8. Master your mind, and you master your solitude. The greatest challenge in being alone is not the absence of people, it is the noise of your own uncontrolled mind. When you are surrounded by others, your attention is distracted. Conversations, responsibilities, and external stimulation keep your thoughts occupied. But when you are alone, there is nothing left to hide behind. Your thoughts become louder. Your fears become clearer. Your insecurities rise to the surface. This is why many people believe they cannot handle solitude. In reality, they have simply never learned how to manage their own mind. The Buddha taught that the mind, when untrained, becomes your greatest enemy, but when disciplined, it becomes your greatest friend. If your mind constantly tells you that you are lonely, unwanted, or incomplete, being alone will feel painful. However, if your mind is trained to observe thoughts without believing every story it creates, solitude becomes peaceful. You begin to realize that many of your feelings are not facts, but temporary mental reactions. When you stop identifying with every thought, you gain space inside yourself. In that space, calmness begins to grow. Mastering your mind means understanding how it works. It means noticing when you are overthinking and gently bringing your attention back to the present moment. It means recognizing when your mind is comparing your life to others and choosing gratitude instead. It means catching yourself when you start creating imaginary fears about the future and returning to what is real right now. This practice does not happen overnight. It requires patience, awareness, and consistent self-reflection. But with time, your mind becomes quieter and more obedient. As you strengthen this inner discipline, being alone no longer feels threatening. You can sit in silence without needing constant stimulation. You can spend time by yourself without feeling restless. You begin to enjoy simple moments such as reading, walking, breathing deeply, or simply observing nature. These small experiences start to feel meaningful because your mind is no longer constantly searching for distraction. When you master your mind, you realize that solitude is not emptiness but opportunity. It is a space where creativity grows, clarity develops, and emotional healing takes place. Instead of feeling abandoned, you feel empowered. Instead of feeling isolated, you feel centered. You understand that your thoughts do not control you, you control your thoughts. This is the true power of living without anyone. It is not about rejecting relationships or avoiding connection. It is about reaching a level of inner mastery where your happiness is not dependent on constant external stimulation. When your mind is steady, your solitude becomes strength. And when your solitude becomes strength, you carry peace with you wherever you go. 9. Solitude is the path to self-discovery and inner awakening. When you constantly surround yourself with people, noise, and distractions, you rarely get the chance to truly know who you are. Your identity becomes shaped by expectations, roles, and reactions. You become the friend others expect, the partner someone desires, the family member who plays a certain part. Slowly, without realizing it, you begin to lose touch with your authentic self. Solitude removes these external influences and forces you to face your true nature. At first, this can feel uncomfortable because you are no longer hiding behind roles. But this discomfort is not harm, it is awakening. The Buddha's path was built on deep self-inquiry. He sat alone under the Bodhi tree, not because he hated people, but because he understood that clarity comes from within. When you allow yourself to be alone long enough, you begin to observe your patterns. You notice how you react to stress. You notice what truly brings you peace. You notice how often you seek approval or fear rejection. These realizations are powerful because they reveal the areas where you are still attached and dependent. Awareness becomes your teacher. Solitude gives you the space to question your beliefs. Are your goals truly yours, or were they influenced by others? Are your fears based on reality, or on past experiences that no longer define you? Are you chasing certain relationships because they align with your values, or because you fear being alone? These questions rarely arise when you are constantly distracted. But in silence, they surface naturally. As you continue this process, you start discovering strengths you did not know you had. You realize you can handle your emotions without external rescue. You realize you can solve problems calmly without constant advice. You realize you can enjoy your own company without feeling incomplete. This self-discovery builds confidence that no external praise can match. It is the quiet confidence of knowing yourself deeply. Solitude also helps you reconnect with simple joys. You begin appreciating small moments that once went unnoticed. A quiet morning feels peaceful instead of lonely. A walk alone feels reflective instead of empty. You start feeling content without constant stimulation. This contentment is powerful because it is self-created. It does not rely on someone else's presence. The more you understand yourself, the less you depend on others to define you. You stop shaping your identity around what people expect. You become clearer about your values, your boundaries, and your purpose. This clarity protects you from entering relationships that do not align with your growth. It also allows you to connect with others in a healthier way because you are no longer trying to fill a void. Solitude, when embraced consciously, becomes a doorway to inner awakening. It strips away illusions and reveals your true foundation. It teaches you patience, resilience, and self-awareness. And through this process, you begin to understand that being alone is not a weakness or a sign of rejection. It is an opportunity to return to yourself. When you fully walk this path, you no longer fear solitude. You welcome it. You see it as a sacred space where growth happens quietly, and from that growth emerges a stronger, calmer, and more awakened version of you. That is the gift of solitude. That is the power of living without anyone. 10. When you are whole alone, you love without fear. The final and most powerful stage of learning to live without anyone is this. You reach a point where you are emotionally whole on your own, and from that wholeness, you can finally love without fear. Many people believe that being happy alone means rejecting relationships or becoming distant from the world. But true independence does not make your heart smaller, it makes it stronger and purer. When you are no longer afraid of being alone, your love becomes free from desperation. Most relationships are built on hidden fear, the fear of losing someone, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being replaced. Because of these fears, people become controlling, jealous, insecure, and overly attached. They constantly seek reassurance. They overthink small changes in behavior. They interpret silence as rejection. This happens because their happiness is tied to the presence of another person. When that presence feels threatened, panic begins. But when you have learned to live peacefully by yourself, something changes inside you. You no longer see a relationship as your only source of joy. You no longer believe that without someone beside you, life loses meaning. Instead, you see relationships as a beautiful addition to an already complete life. This mindset removes pressure from both you and the other person. You are not holding on to them out of fear. You are choosing them out of appreciation. When you love from wholeness, you do not try to control. You do not cling tightly. You allow the other person to be free, just as you are free. You trust yourself enough to know that even if things change, you will remain stable. This inner security creates a calm and mature love. You listen more patiently. You communicate more clearly. You respond instead of reacting. Because your identity is not built on their presence, you can handle disagreements without feeling threatened. Being whole alone also sharpens your boundaries. You no longer tolerate disrespect just to avoid loneliness. If someone consistently disturbs your peace, you have the strength to walk away. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. You understand that protecting your inner balance is more important than forcing a connection. This ability to leave calmly is one of the strongest signs of emotional maturity. At the same time, when someone treats you with kindness and respect, you can fully appreciate it without fear of losing it. You enjoy their presence deeply, but you do not become dependent on it. Your love is no longer mixed with anxiety. It becomes steady, grounded, and sincere. You give because you want to, not because you are afraid of being alone. This is the paradox of living without anyone. The more comfortable you become alone, the healthier your relationships become. When you remove fear from love, you remove pressure, insecurity, and emotional instability. What remains is connection based on choice, respect, and mutual growth. When you are whole alone, you move through life with calm confidence. You do not rush into relationships to escape silence. You do not stay in unhealthy situations out of fear. You are guided by clarity rather than loneliness, and because of this clarity, you experience love in its purest form. Being happy alone is not about isolation, it is about inner completeness. When you reach this level, you understand that your happiness begins within you and extends outward, not the other way around. And from that place of inner wholeness, you become capable of loving deeply, freely, and without fear. 11. Walk your path with inner authority, not emotional dependence. At the highest level of learning to live without anyone, you begin to walk through life with inner authority. This means your decisions are guided by your awareness, your values, and your understanding, not by emotional dependence on others. Many people never reach this stage because they constantly look outside for direction. They ask others what they should do. They wait for approval before taking action. They measure their choices based on how they will be perceived. Without realizing it, they surrender control of their own path. The Buddha's teaching was centered on self-awareness and personal responsibility. He did not promise that someone else would guide every step. He encouraged individuals to observe their own minds, understand their own suffering, and awaken through their own insight. This is inner authority. It is the ability to trust your judgment because it is rooted in clarity, not fear. When you depend emotionally on others, your choices become unstable. If someone supports you, you feel confident. If they doubt you, you hesitate. If they disapprove, you feel lost. Your direction shifts based on external opinions. But when you develop the strength to stand alone, your path becomes clearer. You listen to advice, but you are not controlled by it. You value connection, but you are not dependent on it. Walking with inner authority also means accepting responsibility for your emotions. You stop blaming others for how you feel. Instead of saying, "They made me feel this way," you begin asking, "Why did I react this way?" This shift is powerful because it places control back into your hands. You understand that while you cannot control everything around you, you can control your responses. This awareness makes you emotionally mature and independent. As this independence deepens, you become less influenced by social pressure. You no longer feel the need to follow the crowd just to feel included. You make choices that align with your growth, even if they are unpopular. You are comfortable standing alone in your truth. This does not mean you become stubborn or closed-minded. It means your foundation is internal, not external. Inner authority also protects you from manipulation. When someone tries to guilt you, pressure you, or emotionally control you, you recognize it. Because you are not desperate for approval or afraid of being alone, you do not easily give in. You remain calm, clear, and firm. This steadiness commands quiet respect. People sense that you are grounded. Living without anyone at this level does not mean rejecting relationships. It means engaging in them from a place of strength. You collaborate without losing yourself. You listen without surrendering your identity. You connect without becoming dependent. You understand that your life is ultimately your responsibility, and you walk your path with confidence. When you reach this stage, solitude no longer feels like isolation. It feels like sovereignty. You are the leader of your own inner world. Your happiness is self-generated. Your peace is self-protected. Your direction is self-chosen. And because of this, you move through life with calm authority, knowing that even if no one walks beside you, you are fully capable of walking forward on your own. The highest level of learning to live without anyone is not isolation, and it is not emotional coldness. It is reaching a place where your inner world is so stable that external events cannot easily disturb it. When you become truly comfortable alone, you stop living in fear of loss. You stop constantly worrying about who might leave, who might change, or who might replace you. Instead of building your security on people and circumstances, you build it on awareness, self-trust, and emotional discipline. Most people live in a quiet state of anxiety. Even when things are going well, there is a hidden fear underneath. They fear losing love. They fear being forgotten. They fear being abandoned. Because of this fear, they behave in ways that slowly weaken them. They overthink small changes in someone's tone. They analyze messages repeatedly. They tolerate disrespect because they would rather endure discomfort than face loneliness. Their peace becomes fragile because it depends on something that is outside of their control. When you become comfortable alone, that hidden fear begins to fade. You understand deeply that everything in life is temporary. People come and go. Circumstances shift, feelings evolve. Instead of resisting this reality, you accept it, and acceptance removes fear. You no longer feel the need to hold tightly to people just to feel safe. You allow relationships to flow naturally. If someone chooses to stay, you appreciate it. If someone chooses to leave, you accept it without collapsing. This acceptance is not weakness. It is emotional strength. Comfort in solitude builds resilience in ways that nothing else can. When you spend time alone intentionally, you learn how to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. You learn how to calm your own mind instead of seeking constant distraction. You face your insecurities and gradually weaken their power over you. You begin to understand that loneliness is just a feeling, not a permanent state. Feelings rise and fall, but your awareness remains steady. As this awareness grows stronger, your reactions become calmer. When someone criticizes you, you reflect before responding. You do not immediately feel attacked because your identity is not built on their approval. When someone walks away, you feel sadness, but you do not question your worth. You trust that your value does not decrease because someone failed to see it. This trust in yourself becomes a powerful foundation. Being comfortable alone also changes how you use your time and energy. Instead of constantly seeking validation or companionship, you invest in your growth. You strengthen your mind through reflection and discipline. You build habits that improve your health, knowledge, and emotional control. You become more focused because your energy is no longer scattered in chasing attention. Over time, this inward investment creates a solid sense of identity. You know who you are, what you stand for, and what you refuse to accept. Another powerful shift happens in your relationships. When you are not afraid of being alone, you stop settling for less than you deserve. You no longer remain in environments that drain you. You no longer silence yourself just to avoid conflict. You speak calmly and clearly because you are not desperate for approval, and paradoxically, this independence often attracts healthier connections. People respect those who respect themselves. The Buddha taught that true freedom comes from non-attachment and awareness. When you resist being alone, you suffer. When you accept it, you discover its strength. Solitude becomes a space where clarity grows. It becomes a place where your mind becomes disciplined and your emotions become steady. It becomes a foundation for inner peace. When you reach this stage, you become unshakable not because life stops challenging you, but because you stop collapsing under challenge. Your confidence does not depend on praise. Your peace does not disappear with criticism. Your identity does not crumble when someone leaves. You remain steady, like a mountain that stands firm, even when storms pass over it. Living without anyone does not mean rejecting love or companionship. It means understanding that your happiness begins within you. When your inner world is stable, relationships become additions to your life, not the source of your life. You can love deeply, connect sincerely, and share freely without losing yourself. And that is true power. When you are comfortable alone, you are no longer controlled by fear, you are guided by clarity. You walk through life with calm confidence, knowing that even if everything around you changes, the strength within you remains steady. That is what it means to be unshakable. 12. When you become comfortable alone, you become unshakable. There is a level of strength that only solitude can give you, and it is a strength that cannot be borrowed, gifted, or taught through words alone. It must be experienced. When you truly become comfortable being alone, something fundamental shifts inside you. You no longer see aloneness as a threat, as rejection, or as proof that something is missing in your life. Instead, you begin to see it as stability. You begin to see it as space. You begin to see it as power. Most people are not disturbed by external problems as much as they are disturbed by the fear of facing life without support. They constantly look around to make sure someone is there, someone to validate their feelings, someone to reassure them when they doubt themselves, someone to distract them when their thoughts become uncomfortable. Because of this habit, they never fully develop their inner strength. Their confidence becomes dependent, their peace becomes conditional, their stability becomes fragile. When you start spending intentional time alone, especially without distractions, you slowly begin to train your nervous system to relax in silence. At first, your mind may resist. It may create anxious thoughts. It may remind you of past pain. It may try to convince you that you need someone to feel safe. But if you stay with yourself patiently, without escaping, you begin to notice something important. The thoughts are temporary. The discomfort is temporary. The loneliness rises and falls like a wave. But the awareness observing it remains calm. This realization changes everything. You understand that you are not your emotions. You are not your temporary feelings of emptiness. You are the awareness that notices them. And once you discover that stable center within you, your fear begins to dissolve. You no longer panic when plans change. You no longer collapse when someone becomes distant. You no longer feel desperate when attention decreases. Your emotional world becomes less chaotic because you are no longer trying to escape it. Being comfortable alone also strengthens your discipline. When you are not constantly chasing connection, you have more time to invest in yourself. You develop routines that strengthen your mind and body. You read more deeply. You reflect more honestly. You improve your habits. You become more focused because your energy is not scattered in seeking approval or validation. Over time, this self-investment builds a deep sense of pride and self-respect. You begin to trust yourself more because you have proven to yourself that you can handle life independently. Another powerful transformation happens in your thinking. You stop interpreting every loss as a personal failure. If someone leaves, you no longer assume it means you were not enough. You understand that people leave for many reasons, most of which have nothing to do with your value. If someone criticizes you, you evaluate calmly instead of reacting emotionally. If the criticism is useful, you grow from it. If it is not, you let it pass. Your peace is no longer easily disturbed because your identity is rooted within you, not in other people's opinions. Comfort in solitude also removes desperation from your relationships. When you are not afraid of being alone, you do not rush into unhealthy connections. You take your time. You observe. You choose carefully. You no longer accept half-hearted effort just to avoid silence. This makes your standards stronger and your boundaries clearer. You speak honestly because you are not afraid of the consequences. You walk away calmly when necessary because you know you can survive on your own. As this strength grows, you begin to experience a quiet confidence that does not need to be announced. You do not need to prove yourself constantly. You do not need to show the world how strong you are. You simply feel stable. There is a calmness in the way you move through life. You are less reactive, less anxious, less dependent. Your emotions become more balanced because they are not constantly triggered by external uncertainty. The Buddha taught that attachment and resistance create suffering. When you resist being alone, you suffer. When you cling to others out of fear, you suffer. But when you accept solitude as part of life and use it as a space for growth, suffering decreases. You begin to see that your greatest companion has always been your own awareness. You begin to see that your strength was never outside of you. It was simply undeveloped. When you are truly comfortable alone, you become unshakable not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. Storms may still come, people may still leave. Circumstances may still change unexpectedly, but your foundation does not collapse. You bend without breaking, you feel without falling apart, you care without clinging. Living without anyone does not mean rejecting love. It means not depending on love to survive. It means understanding that your happiness is generated within you. Relationships become a sharing of strength, not a search for completion. You love freely because you are free. You connect deeply because you are stable. And in this state, you realize something powerful. You are never truly alone because you are always with yourself. When you trust that self, when you strengthen that self, when you become comfortable in that self, nothing outside of you has the power to completely destabilize you. That is the true meaning of being unshakable. That is the true power of being happy alone. Learning to live without anyone is not about rejecting people, isolating yourself, or pretending that you do not need connection. It is about discovering that your foundation must be built within you first. The Buddha's teachings guide you toward inner stability, reminding you that everything outside of you is temporary, but the awareness within you can become steady and strong. When you stop depending on others for your happiness, you stop living in fear of losing them. Being happy alone is your true power because it frees you from desperation. You no longer chase validation. You no longer beg for attention. You no longer lower your standards just to avoid silence. Instead, you cultivate a calm and disciplined mind that can sit peacefully in solitude. You build emotional strength that does not collapse when circumstances change. You create a sense of worth that is not controlled by someone else's opinion. As you grow in this independence, relationships become healthier and more meaningful. You connect with others by choice, not by need. You give love without fear, and you walk away from disrespect without hesitation. Your peace becomes your priority, and your self-respect becomes non-negotiable. In the end, the journey of learning to live without anyone is the journey of returning to yourself. It is realizing that you were never incomplete. It is understanding that your strength has always been within you. When you master your mind, accept impermanence, and embrace solitude as a teacher, you discover a deep and stable happiness that does not rely on external circumstances. That is true freedom, that is true strength, and that is the power of being happy alone.